Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. I hope you guys have had a good weekend slash last couple days or whatever. Finally got a new video uploaded to the channel here. I think I got that uploaded this morning, and first one that I did in a while because we were gone this whole last weekend, and that was a lot of fun. We ended up in Ann Arbor, Michigan, and it was a good time. It ended up being a really good time, and yeah, it was a pretty awesome time. So I was finally able to get a video uploaded, a video that I planned to do before leaving to go to Ann Arbor, but things kind of happened, and things just kind of came up, work and whatever, and so I wasn't able to get that done, but I was able to get that done and uploaded to the channel, and thought I'd talk a little about something a little important that happened yesterday. As you can tell by probably the outfit that I'm wearing, I thought I'd talk a little bit about what happened last night. But before I do that, if you are new to the channel and you love hockey like I do, like we all do, if you love the sport, it'd be absolutely awesome. It would mean a lot to me if you would hit the like button, hit that subscribe button. Also, you can hit the little bell too to be notified anytime future videos come up. And yeah, so with that said, we had the draft lottery yesterday, or last night. So we found out who earned the right to draft Connor Bedard. And really nothing changed. I mean, everything basically stayed exactly how it stacked up standing wise until it got to the top three. And people, of course, I think they do this every year. Everybody kind of thought, okay, we got down to the top three, and Kevin Weeks kind of let it slip that Columbus had slipped down to number 3. And he had kind of let that slip before it was actually revealed on the broadcast. Now, granted, these guys all know the order already because they do the ping pong ball thing. They do that. They don't show that on the broadcast, but they know he's an insider. Of course, he's going to know the order of the picks, and I think he might have gotten just a little overzealous and just kind of blurted out that, oh yeah, by the way, Columbus has dropped to number 3. So it was either going to be Anaheim or Chicago to get the number 1 pick. And that's exactly how that played out. Number 3 ended up being Columbus. And then it gets down to the number 1 and number 2. And of course the team that won the draft lottery, of course, the Chicago Blackhawks. Which makes everybody happy, right? I mean, everybody's happy. The Blackhawks, isn't that, everybody's really happy about that, right? Right? No? They're not happy. People are not happy? Because right away, the whole idea, it's rigged again. The lottery's rigged. Number one, how? If you're going to rig the draft lottery, everybody, and people, of course, are talking, they rigged it back during the Sidney Crosby draft. That's how Pittsburgh was able to draft Sidney Crosby. No, it couldn't have been the fact that Pittsburgh, the prior year, was the worst team in the league. It couldn't have been that. It couldn't have had to do anything with being the worst team or one of the worst teams. Like Chicago. One of the worst teams in the league. And everybody's screaming, it's rigged, it's rigged. Okay, if the NHL is going to rig the draft lottery, wouldn't they rig it in favor of Arizona? What is the personal pet project of Gary Bettman? It's the Arizona Coyotes. Who is he? Which team has he gone absolutely bonkers for to try and keep afloat? It's the Arizona Coyotes. Why wouldn't you rig it for the Coyotes? If you're going to rig the lottery, you don't rig it for the Blackhawks. I mean, I understand, the whole idea of, Chicago. It's an original six city. It is. Was anybody screaming when the Blackhawks won the draft lottery to draft Patrick Kane? I don't recall anybody screaming when they were able to draft Patrick Kane and Jonathan Toews. Why were they able to do that? Because they were bad. They were a bad team. The Blackhawks are a bad team. Toews looks like he's going to retire. Kane, of course, was traded out at the trade deadline. And some people were actually going and saying, well, does this mean that Kane then might come back to Chicago? Might re-sign with the Blackhawks because now they got Connor Bedard there. And to maybe help him get into his role as the next big thing for the Blackhawks. I don't see Kane doing that. I wouldn't say it wouldn't be intriguing though, because I mean the hype for Connor Bedard is insane. I mean, insane. And like I said, people were saying about this about Alexei Lafreniere a couple years ago. There was a lot of hype behind him. He hasn't exactly shown all of that, but there wasn't as much hype around Lafreniere as there is around Bedard. Bedard is, this kid is incredible. And the Chicago Blackhawks have, they've won the right to get him. Where it's interesting now, because now that the Blackhawks have got that number one pick, now we're seeing a lot of the armchair GMs come in and come up with these wild trade ideas to get the number one pick away from the Blackhawks. One that I saw, I thought is this real? This is what somebody thought. They thought what the Boston Bruins could do is find a way to trade Linus Ullmark, David Pastrnak, and I think it might be another first round pick for Bedard to the Hawks for the number one pick. I even saw one that I thought was crazy for the Minnesota Wild. The Wild could maybe find a way, of dumping like Marco Rossi, a couple other players, along with like their next 2 years worth of first round picks and a second round pick to Chicago to get the number one pick. They're not going to happen. Anybody thinks that that's going to happen? The Blackhawks are actually going to entertain that? I think they're out of their mind. I think the Blackhawks they've got a gem here, and it's to me it's like when they won the draft lottery to get Patrick Kane. Look what they got with Kane and Toews, man. They brought 3 cups. They brought three Stanley Cups back to the city of Chicago. And the hype behind Bedard is real. But again, the idea that, it's rigged. The draft lottery is rigged. How? Again, it couldn't be because Chicago was one of the worst teams in the league. There was a reason why they had the third best odds to win. Because they were literally the third worst team in the league, behind Anaheim and Columbus. Anaheim still got number 2, and Columbus got number 3. Now, just because Anaheim, didn't win the draft lottery to be able to get Bedard, You got Adam Fantilli out there. I'm pretty sure Anaheim's going to be jumping all over him. Columbus, we're not exactly sure who they're going to take. There's the whole thing potentially with Matvei Michkov and whether or not he'll actually be able to come over at all. Because, Russia kind of has a thing right now where if you're signed to one of their KHL teams, they basically expect those to be like lifetime contracts. They don't want their young stars coming over. It's very similar to how it was in the 70s and the 80s when you had to have these great players be smuggled out of the Soviet Union. Sergei Fedorov had to get smuggled basically out of the Soviet Union. A lot of these guys, like Slava Fetisov and a lot of these guys back then, they had to get smuggled out of the Soviet Union in order to get over here. Because the Soviets would not let them go. They did not want to let their stars go. They basically said, you're playing for us, you're not playing for anybody else, you're not going anywhere. You are playing here. Which is why a lot of these really good players back in the 80s, like from the 1980 Soviet team that lost to Team USA, a lot of those guys, almost every one of those guys was NHL caliber. They couldn't get out of Russia. They couldn't. The Detroit Red Wings basically had to do their darndest to be able to smuggle, and yes, I say smuggle basically, Sergei Fedorov out of there. So that's what might be the issue with Michkov and why, we don't know if anybody's really gonna even try to get him. Or even take him because they don't know if he's going to be able to come over. And we're finding out like with Fedotov, the goaltender for Philadelphia. They basically threw him into the mandatory military service. But now it's looking like he's not going to be able to come over at all because they're not going to let him go. Even though he is a draft pick of the Philadelphia Flyers, he might not be able to get out of there. So, we don't know. We don't know. We don't know if Michkov is going to get drafted in the first round or not, if any team's really going to take a chance on him. But, we're not sure exactly what Columbus is going to do, but this is a pretty deep draft. And the Blackhawks, they won the draft lottery. They earned the right to draft Connor Bedard. And again, the whole idea of, they rigged it so Chicago could win. Now, if you're going to rig it, you rig it for Arizona. Because Arizona has been the pet project of Gary Bettman for basically their entire existence. And he has gone, he has invested so much into the Arizona Coyotes that if you're going to rig the draft lottery, that's where you want Bedard to go. You want him to go to Arizona. You don't want him to go to Chicago. Chicago's not going anywhere. Chicago is an original six franchise. Chicago is not going anywhere. Arizona has been the NHL and Gary Bettman's pet project for basically the Coyotes' entire existence since they moved there from Winnipeg. They have done everything they can to keep that team there. Even though, to me, it's not, it hasn't been working. And from what I was hearing, it's looking, the vote might not go the way that the league or the Coyotes might want. That's a whole interesting thing. That's an interesting little topic too. I might get into about how the vote might be, how they're not real confident. It's apparently looking like the Coyotes organization might not be confident that the vote might not go their way. And then what could happen if that doesn't? That might be something I might get into. But that's where you put Bedard. If you want to rig the draft lottery, you rig it so he ends up in Arizona, not Chicago. Chicago won the draft lottery because they were one of the three worst teams in the league. And Taves, basically his contract is up. They traded away Kane. They got that draft. They got all that. They got all that cap space, all that money off their cap now. And it's looking like this might not be necessarily a complete tear down and rebuild with Bedard. This might be one of those. This might be a retool. I fully expect the Chicago Blackhawks in the next couple of years not only to be back in the playoffs, but it wouldn't surprise me if this is a team in the next couple of years that they might end up being a contender again for the Cup. We'll have to wait and see. But to me, the whole idea of, the lottery was rigged for the Blackhawks to win. No. If you were going to rig the draft lottery, you rig it so he goes to Arizona, not Chicago. But there's always people every year. There's always the whole thing. It's rigged. The Oilers won the draft lottery 3 years in a row and all that. Nobody was yelling it was rigged. Well, I mean, people were saying it. Well, people have been saying it's been rigged for years. But when you ask people for proof, how are they rigging it? What proof do you have that they're rigging it? Nobody can show anything. So it's not being rigged. To me, it's not being rigged. Pittsburgh won the draft lottery for Sidney Crosby because they were the worst team the year before the lost season. They were dead last in the league. They were the worst team in the sport. And the thing is, the only spots that switched were those top three. Everybody else stayed exactly where they were. Nobody moved up, nobody moved down until it got to the top three. So, to me, the whole idea of rigging the draft lottery, it's just to favor one team or the other. If they wanted to rig the draft lottery, they rigged it the wrong way. You want to rig the draft lottery, you rig it so he goes to Arizona, not Chicago. Let me know what you guys think, though, in the comment section below. And, what do you guys think of Bedard going to Chicago? And what do you think about the wild trade proposals out there? People are throwing out these wild trade proposals. Boston, let's send Pasternak, who we just re-signed to a huge contract. Let's ship him off to Chicago with Linus Ullmark to try and pry the number one pick away from Chicago. I don't see Chicago doing that. I really don't. The Minnesota Wild. Let's go and send. Let's let the Wild go and send all these. A couple of these good, really young prospects that we have, along with like 3 picks, including 2 first-round picks, to potentially get the number one pick. I don't see any of those coming to fruition. I think it's just, a few people, armchair GMs, just let's just try to whip up something to try to maybe get the number one pick out of Chicago. They're not gonna. I don't think it's gonna work. I don't think Chicago is gonna entertain any type of trade requests for the number one pick. But let me know what you guys think in the comment section. Are you guys in the belief of, the NHL rigging the draft lottery so Chicago could win? Or do some of you guys think that, it wouldn't make any sense for Chicago, for the league to rig it for Chicago? Because if they were going to rig it, wouldn't they rig it for Arizona? Let me know what you guys think in the comments section below. hit like and subscribe if you have not gotten around to that yet. Also, hit the little bell too if you want to be notified of anytime a future video is uploaded. And again, let me know what your guys' thoughts are. I think Connor Bedard is going to look pretty good in this jersey. And, you know, I think the Blackhawks are going to be a team. I think they're going to be something to be reckoned with here in the next couple years, I think, with Connor Bedard. And yeah, we'll see what the Blackhawks do. Again, let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. And hit like and subscribe. Hit the little bell if you want to be notified anytime a future video comes up. And I will see you guys again later.